formed in a dream, kept in a thought, carried across oceans, spoken in whispers, passed down from elders, planted in gardens of okra, prayed for in sanctuary, resisted with fury, protected with faith, created with love, born into being, from root to bone. You are here.
This podcast talks about colonial, racial, and gender-based violence. Please listen at your own pace and capacity. And remember to do what you need to do to care for yourself if you feel activated by this content. Should you need resources, please check out our section on resources at decolonizingtherapy.com. Be well. Greetings, 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 my good people. This is Dr. Jennifer Mullen, and welcome from Root to Bone, the podcast with Dr. Jenn. I am so deeply grateful to be here with y'all today. It's been a little bit of a chaotic fuck show. So by the time you hear this, who knows what else we'll have developed in our hearts, our bodies, within one another, in the world. And if you are on Turtle Island, there must be a whole lot coming through you. There must be a whole lot churning within you. There certainly is for me. So before introducing our magnanimous, wonderful, beautiful guest and this beautiful spirit and dear friend of mine, and I just want to kind of get into it, and I'm all shimmery and excited and ready. And I also want to just invite everyone to take a fucking breath. Whether you're driving, whether you're breastfeeding, whether you're taking a poop, whatever you're doing while you're listening to this. I listen to podcasts in the shower. And that can look like a breath where you're also bringing in some movement. This can look like taking a breath and rolling your shoulders back. This can look like taking a few breaths and taking a drink of something. And this can look like taking a breath and letting yourself sob for a few minutes just because it's a lot. And I normally say this at the end of our podcast, but I also want to say, in the spirit of, I believe, the binder and one of the shifters and trailblazing energies that keeps me tethered, which is also joy, and doing this podcast and bringing on folks that I know are in real time paradigm crushing and like straddling various lines, straddling various identities, weaving, shape-shifting, co-creating. That gives me a lot of fucking joy. And so I would love to welcome Toi Marie. I had to say the middle name.
Thank you.
Toi Marie Smith. So Toi Smith is not only a mother, a growth and impact strategist, and the founder of Loving Black Single Mothers, but Toi also, I want to also add in there, with your permission, like a lover, just like a lover, right? Yeah, of lots of like lover. Toi's experience as a single mama, a lifelong learner, and rev thinker deeply inspires her mission to create ecosystems of care for single Black moms that directly nourish and improve their material conditions. Toi's work centers on doing life, business, and motherhood differently. You also are likely familiar with Toi because of Business for the People. Some of you may be familiar with Toi with her work around the spell of capitalism and the deepening. Yeah? Is that correct as well?
Yeah.
And so I want to sort of weave all of these areas in. Before we get started, I'm going to read a little something. And Toi, I'm going to invite you to receive, to notice how this lands, how this feels. And while I'm reading it, I'm going to hold up what I brought to our virtual, loving, grounded altar. And this is like cute
Oh, look at it.
black girl pencil. My friend Karina gave me this, and it's adorable, and it just reminds me of um, your black girl badassness. You know, like a little power puffs. Pew, 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 pew,
I
pew, pew.
love
Sorry.
it.
Okay. And so, and this was from a recent newsletter. And by the way, I live for Toy's newsletters. Like all the time, I'm always like ready. I grab my coffee or whatever I'm doing. And I'm just like, because I can feel the time, the energy, the intentionality that is placed into Toy's work. Okay. So I'm going to read one of the quotes that is listed right above the newsletter caption, right? Um, Nancy Fraser, capitalist society divides the producing classes into two distinct categories of persons, one suitable for mere exploitation, the other destined for brute expropriation. Hmm. And then Eric Olin Wright, the hallmark of capitalism is poverty in the midst of plenty. Okay, now Toi Smith. Why study capitalism? The short answer is this: so you can understand the conditions you live under. And that's on period. She didn't say that, but I just said that's on period. It's like becoming aware of the water you're swimming in. You might not notice it at first. It's invisible, surrounding you, shaping everything. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. You begin to make better sense of the world as it truly is, not just the version they sell to us. But the longer answer is this: studying capitalism isn't just about analysis, it's about freeing your imagination. It's about loosening the grip on our collective consciousness so that we can dream differently, dream more boldly, because capitalism doesn't just organize how we work, buy, or survive, it organizes how we think. It sculpts our dreams and imagination. It disciplines us. It teaches us what's possible and what's impossible. It teaches us what we're worth. And so often, it teaches us wrong. There's more to that. Please sign up to Toy's newsletter. It will be listed in the show notes, and Toy will let us know exactly where to find her and more of this deliciousness. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome on to From Root to Bone podcast, Toi Smith.
I wrote that. I did. I did.
How does
I'm
that
so
feel?
excited. You know, um, it feels good because I want more people to be challenging our conditions and questioning the things and the ways that we have to live. And so it feels good to write those words and to have them be received by people. Um, and people who are like questioning and are like, well, I don't know exactly what you mean, but I feel something with it. I'm like,
Mm,
exactly. Exactly.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to also say something else. Toy is a Capricorn sun. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I think of Toy as a Capricorn sun, I think of all the best possible traits of a Capricorn. There's this grounding, a sensibility. I feel like Toy, you wait before responding. And I could be wrong, but since I've met you, and then I have to eventually tell them the story of how I met you as well. But since I've met you, I feel like you stop and you're like, and you do this little, and you look to the side and there's like either a body rock or there's a something.
Mm,
Is that on purpose? Is that natural?
mm. I mean, I have a lot of earth energy if we're talking about astrology, right? So I'm a Capricorn sun, a Virgo moon. But I'm also a Scorpio rising. And I have a lot of other Capricorn placements. And it is natural for me to kinda take a beat, to, like, try to feel into how things land in my body before making a move. Because I know my words can be really pointed. So sometimes I have to be really clear about how I want to say something and get really clear about like who I'm talking to and how I want them to understand what I'm saying. So I don't move at a I try to respond versus react,
Mm,
I think is the way. Like I really try to be like, what is a response here that I want to have versus how do they want me to react?
yes. I love that. Were you always like that?
Um, I've always been pretty like quiet, pretty like um observing.
Mm,
Like sitting in the corner, just watching how things flow. Like if I go to a party, I'm not chatty Cathy. Like I'm not bopping around talking to everyone. But if I know folks, I know folks. Like I
yeah,
know them and
yeah.
I'm with them, but I'm also watching what's going on. Like one of my favorite things to do is just to be working in a coffee shop just to see like what's happening in the world, and to just observe, and from that observation, like, I have thoughts, and I'm like, "Oh, I could write about this, or I could say something about this." So, I think it's always been an innate in me of, like, really just looking before talking. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. I love this about you, and I'm probably a direct opposite.
No.
No, hella impulsive. Who, me? Like
Not
hella
you.
impulsive, like hella impulsive. And I suppose I am such a like I joke about this all the time, but I find that as somebody who was not, thank goodness in some ways, and other ways, fuck, like not put in a box in terms of like, oh, this is her diagnosis or this is what's going on. Um, Sometimes I was shut down as a kid. Like, it's too much, like, shh. And other times my mother would just let me go rampant and like sign me up to dancing school or gymnastics, even though I was horrible at gymnastics. And like big booty and gymnastics do not go along. but all this to say, I have learned growing up, and I think being like a neuro spicy, intuitive, whatever, highly sensitive person, I could identify folks that were like, "Oh, I love this quality in them." And instead of ever feeling like I just didn't feel jealous or envious, instead it was like, how do I adopt a little bit of that quality because it is such a becoming quality or it helps me now. Some people might say, "Oh, that's further masking." But on another end, maybe it is. And maybe it was also like I didn't have certain role models to also show me what else was possible or how else I could communicate without people pleasing or without giving everything to everybody all the time. And so I don't know. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that. I know you mother 4 beautiful
Yeah.
children.
Mhm.
Don't
Yeah.
believe you identify as neurodivergent. I don't believe.
You
Maybe you do.
you
Yeah.
know, what's interesting
We don't have to
is
talk about it.
one of my beloveds, Renee, who like I deeply love and admire and work with. We were together maybe 2 years ago. We were at this conference and we were talking and she was like, um, "Have you ever thought of yourself as like neurodivergent or anything like that?" And I was like, "Not really, because what I get normally from people is, oh, you finish things. Like you can, this very um typical way of thinking, of being, of just like you get things done. You don't have any qualities that would place you inside of being neurodivergent or anything like that."
Mhm. Mhm.
And in her working with me, she was like, "I sense," as my beloved, she can say these things to me. She's like,
Yes.
"I sense
Yes.
some things like the way you do spreadsheets, like the way you have to see things." I was like, "That's just normal." She's like, "No, I don't think that's normal." Right? So there and whatever normal is, but
Right.
it for me was like, "Oh, there is a way that I do things and have to hold things." Now, do I have a diagnosis of anything? No. But my
Mhm.
youngest son has ADHD. And, like, when I say he has ADHD, he has been diagnosed, it affects him on a daily basis. It impacts how he shows up in the world and in school, and it has since the moment he stepped foot into school. And there were
Mm,
things before he even entered school that I noticed about him. And what I know about ADHD is what they say that one or two parents have to have some of it somewhere, right? That it shows up somewhere in your family line some way. And so I've just been really like looking at myself
mm,
because to understand and further connect with him around where have I been masking in certain kind of ways and not allowed myself to show up that maybe are more connected to how he shows up in the world?
mm,
And to go back into, like, you were saying, you are more, like, vocal, you show up with a lot of energy. I normally attract people like that, right? My beloveds are that people, those people. My bestie of, like, 20 years, we are complete opposites. She is like she will start something real quick. Like she is that person. And I love that. And I'm like that's my person and we balance each other out. She's a Cancer, I'm a Capricorn, right? Exactly. So that I have connected. So I feel this sense of we all need different people in our world that make
mhm.
up our personal ecosystem. And so
Yeah,
while I'm more reserved, more quiet in that way, like I really rock with the people who show up and show out and are just like themselves. So,
that's beautiful. Do you think that that allows you as mom, right, as one of these identities that you hold, right, like as mom, as this multi-dimensional kind of being caretaker to one of your sons, do you believe that this quality allows you to further, I don't know, hold space for his unfurling and
mhm,
being?
mhm. I think it yes, and I also think it has allowed there to be a really strong baseline of routine and security and calmness and gentleness in my home, right?
Mm,
So I am like a Capricorn mother in that sense. Like we are very organized. It's calm. They have a level of not expectation or they can expect certain things. Like
mhm,
they know routine. They know they can count on ways of being. And for my
mhm,
son, my youngest son who does have ADHD, he has he does his thing and we just allow him to do his thing, but also he craves routine and he wants to know who is around, who is loving him, all like because he deeply connects and is relational in that way. And so, yes, I allow space for him to show up how he needs to, but me showing up how I need to, I think, um, influences him to be able to show up how he needs to. But then what happens is that like deep knowing of who he is, he goes out into the world, into a
mm,
school system, into an institution that says, "You're not supposed to ask questions. You're not supposed to be who you are. I don't know who taught you that." And so then he goes into the school challenging that all the time and is
yes.
met with such resistance that then I have to go into these institutions and be like, "Well, hold up a second. Now we all gonna have to talk. Now we
Then you bring
all
your
gotta talk."
Virgo moon, Capricorn sun energy, like,
Yes,
who's fucking
yes.
with my baby?
All the time. So, it's great, and also, like, it does create I've been really thinking about this, it does create for him, challenges because authority, especially authority in these institutions holding kids aren't supposed to ask any questions.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
And you're like in teaching him and many of us, right?
Mm,
Reparenting many of us, reminding us that we can question and that we should question. And not only would it benefit us, but it benefits the whole and those that don't even realize that they're being socialized,
mm, mhm.
is what I hear.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was actually at his school a couple weeks ago. I wasn't even supposed to. My plan wasn't to be there. They called because they said he was being disrespectful, and I'm like, I'm really sick of y'all calling me every day. So I went up there because I was going to just pick him up. I wasn't going to talk to anyone. I was just like, listen, I'm going to pick him up, take him home, and we're going to be done for the week. It was a Friday. But then I got there and I was talking to him, and he was like, "They said I was disrespectful, and I don't even know how." Like, I
Mm.
asked the question, "How was I disrespectful?" And they said that was being disrespectful. And so then when he said that, and we were standing outside, I turned us right back around and I said, "Okay, we're going in." And I said, "I need to talk to the dean and the assistant principal because he's getting in trouble for asking y'all a question, and they're thinking it's antagonistic, but it's really him coming from a place of, "I don't understand what you're saying to me. Can you please" it's black and white. You're saying one thing, and I don't have the same definition of that thing, and I don't think I'm doing it. So I want you to explain to me. And so I had to sit with this leadership, the teachers, and say, "He is not being antagonistic to you. He literally is trying to understand so that he can course correct or so he maybe has a rebuttal because he doesn't feel like he's doing that behavior. But
Word.
you you have to meet him at some level of care of like that he is really just not trying to cause harm or like mess shit up. Like he really just wants to know what he did wrong. And so it's in those moments of like that I really hate these institutions because I have to go in and
Fuck.
to talk to teachers and admin who are like, "Oh yeah, you're right. If we talk to him like a human, it could be better." And related to that, because I feel like this is also important, is after that conversation, we were there for like 2 hours.
Mm.
Like 2 days, maybe it was a week later, he came in and he said, and I shared this on Instagram. He said, "Mom, I know I didn't want you to be at the school talking to everyone, but I'm grateful that you did." And it was like 9 o'clock at night. And I was like,
Mm.
"Why?" And he was like, "Because now they treat me like a human and not like a criminal." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, now the dean will say instead of get in class, she'll say, 'Jordan, can you please make sure you make it to class? It would be really helpful.' She doesn't just yell at me."
Ooh, toy. Okay. First of all, I have so much love for I love all your children, but that particular
Mhm.
child,
I
we
know.
used to be on calls and there is this
Yeah.
little Beatrice.
Yeah.
And when you're saying this, after saying my whole body feels like lit up, like prickly, just like naming the thematic moment. And as a kid, that was often treated, not always, but
Yeah.
in many of the ways, and some of the ways you've told me, like your child. Um, I just think about all the times where, whether it was generational, whether, my mom at the time still wasn't sort of, she was still held under this like brainwashed
Mhm.
assumption that these teachers were correct and you listen and you don't ask questions. But I wish I had that. Right? Like, I wish I had an advocate, and I wonder how many other neurodivergent, neurospicy, ADHD, other ways of knowing, understanding the world, super emotional, relational, spongy children and
Yeah.
adults would love and do still want, um, their inquiries, their loving, their inquiries to be clarified without other people making it about them,
Mm.
right? And placing their ego in the way. And so, how beautiful. that he can say, like, "Oh, now they treat me like a full ass person,"
Mhm.
right? And this
Yeah.
criminalization of our Black boys,
Yeah.
right? This adultification, right, of Black children, immediately treating them like they're adults, that they're disrespectful, with conscious or unconscious
Yeah.
on behalf of these institutions. We know that this happens consistently and continuously. And as someone who is trained as a Western clinical psychologist, right, the very Eurocentric lens when I was what I mean by this, we were trained that any kind of questioning, getting out of the seats, anything, as we were saying, that is outside of this bell curve of the
Yeah.
norm, air quotes, if you're not visually seeing me at this time, um, anyone or anything outside of that bell curve is oppositional defiant, right? Is living or has intermittent explosive disorder or is on the fast track to being diagnosed with conduct disorder. This pathologizing of other ways of knowing, feeling, and being. So, like, thank you for fucking being in this world.
Mm. Oh, thank you. Yeah, the assistant principal said to me, um, like, because in the meeting I was showing them how to interact with Jordan. Like, when he does certain things, like, this is
Mm,
how you are to be with him, this is how you, like, have conversations with him, and he was even like, "Thank you, I'm watching how you're talking to him, and, we could all stand to learn some things, and so I'm learning from you right now."
mm,
And, um, I know it's hard sometimes for parents to come and advocate for their children in this way because of it's an institution,
yeah.
and it is difficult. But
Mhm.
I also wanna say, though, that part around these institutions are not easy for anyone. They're
Mm,
not easy for the teachers,
mm.
especially, like, I know at particularly my son's school, a lower income school is not getting a ton of funding, all the things of, like, who's in that class, the bodies that are in that classroom and how they are showing up, because
Good
how are their
point.
parents showing up? How are their
Yes.
parents forced to show up because
Mhm.
of these systems, and that impacts their home life, that then impacts how they show up at school when they get around other bodies acting like this, right? So I know to be a teacher with 30 students who are maybe like Jordan, that that shit's hard,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right? So
yeah.
I sitting and talking with teachers enough, I know that that's difficult. It's not easy for any of us. And so I extend, like you said, the love to all of us to really be kind of holding that. But also, the power dynamics are important. You
Mm,
are an adult in that space. And we have to take consideration of that as well. Because I did ask in that conversation with my son around, because he shared with me that he felt like this particular dean did not like him.
mm.
The way that she speaks to him, she doesn't like him, and he got a sense of that. And I said, I feel like it is responsibility of you as the adult, as a person holding power, to make sure that relationship is better.
Yes.
Right? That I don't feel like that's on him to initiate and course correct. Now, he can be in response to that, and he does have some responsibility, but you have to lead that charge.
Mm,
And that's a heavy thing to
mhm.
have to hold, but I think for more teachers, unlearning these systems is important, especially if you are a white body in a school of predominantly Black and brown children, and you're not
Absolutely.
looking at capitalism, you're not looking at patriarchy, you're not understanding supremacist power, like power over. You're not understanding the social economic location of the children that you are teaching, their
Mhm.
parents, right? Just the neighborhood you're in. That's harmful.
Yes.
That is harmful. So while we're seeing, like, this administration trying to take away so many things, even inside of our schools, that doesn't take away what you can do as an individual teacher to unlearn and learn.
I love all of it. Everything in me is like, yes.
Yes.
And which leads us to this process, call it what you want, of unlearning, unfurling. For some of us, it looks like abolition or decolonizing. And I feel like the energy behind a lot of these words, for me, I can speak for
Mhm.
myself.
Yeah.
Sometimes yes, there are some very specific nuanced differences. And for me, the energy behind the words is I've got to unlearn some shit that I've been
Mhm.
taught from, for instance, in utero, and that I have learned or that has been intergenerationally transmitted to me, consciously or
Mhm.
unconsciously, from my folk. And not only am I trying to do this as an individual and in my own life with my own relationships, but perhaps in my business, in my practices, in my stewarding, and my being a boss ass, doing air
Mhm.
quotes, bitch, and being, any of these things, and being in relationship and being a lover and being a partner, right? Like, how do we humanize, right? And one of the things that I have always adored about you, Toy, um, is your ability, as I said before, to not just take that beat, but I feel like in that beat that you take, and again, I'm always willing to be wrong. In that beat that you take, I feel like it zooms out for you, and you can kind of, I imagine in my mind, Toy has this little like AI, and my friend Gemma Ramba calls AI ancestral intelligence. Like that's
Ooh,
the new AI
yes.
that we want, right?
Mhm.
Like fuck artificial, but like no, 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 no,
Yeah.
no, no. We're bringing back that ancestral intelligence, right? And I see Toy in my very colorful liking stories mind zoom out, and there's this like ancestral intelligence keyboard, and Toy can see different things in different colors and go like like Doctor Strange that shit, and like
Mhm.
bring things together, and then all of that in a millisecond, and then be able to produce not just an analysis, because sometimes that word can feel a little cold to me, right? But
Mhm.
although important, all right.
Yeah.
Um, but I feel like you bring this analysis as well as humanization
Mm.
of people, as you just did when talking about teachers and how we're all dehumanized. But, when we're working in these systems, and it's hard to keep and maintain that sense of self. Um, but I think that this is something you do really beautifully amongst
Mm.
a lot of other beautiful things you do. And you also manage to weave in, or perhaps, no, I take that back. Take all of that ancestral, right, intelligence, technology that I just mentioned, and sort of ground that as a foundation. And then you invite people in to drink from that very clear crystal pool water,
Mm.
that you have just brought together. And in my humble opinion, that is what you did when I was a little baby, business owner, and I was still working at the university. I don't know, was it 2018, 2017? I don't even remember. I don't know if you remember. Um, it was before the pandemic. I know
Mhm.
that. And I know that I left the university through Toys. Not Toy was like, "Oh, you need to leave." It wasn't even like that. But it was although no, it wasn't even like that. But it was Toy really being patient and working with me on this mix. I don't even know how to describe it. On this mix between this is who I am, this is what I need to bring into the world. These systems and this job are literally murdering me.
Mhm.
Like, I can't do this anymore. I can't
Mhm.
do this anymore. Toy really hearing that, bringing that all together, and then us together co-creating loving strategies that would
Mhm.
allow me to move in a way that reminded me that I wasn't moving. I'm not a capitalist. I wasn't making, right? Like I almost needed to
Yeah.
like unlearn that because I'm like, wait, if I'm a
Yeah.
business owner, aren't I a capitalist? Or and she's like, Jen, wait. And then so I'd love to talk a little bit about
Yeah.
that, like what is a cap, what's not. And I want to also say this piece around when is the right time? When are you ready to leave and move? And that's what you said to me, right? Because there were a few pieces that were ready and placed together in order for me to consider leaving the university. It was the end of 2020, so I think many of us know what the end of 2020 was like for us. There were all these unknowns, all these question marks, so much violence on Black bodies, so much violence on the lands. So many of us had historical, intergenerational, everyday trauma, racial trauma kicking up for us, right? And above it all and through it all, I felt that Toy, you were like this thick, boundaried, helpful rope, and you allowed me to like grip on. Sometimes with 2 hands. Sometimes with 1 hand, right? But you allowed me to, like, grip on and feel like I had a tether because it was never the plan to have a business. Like, it was never a plan for decolonizing therapy to become what it is, this octopus, right?
Mhm.
It was never a plan for me to have visibility, right? Like, it was never the plan to be one of the Instagram, hate that word, doing air quotes, Insta therapists or
Yeah.
untherapist. None of it was ever the plan. And so I want to say that that is my introduction to Toy as this thick, loving, consensual rope and impact strategist. And even those words don't cut it.
Mhm.
That was reminding me that I'm not this horrible person and that we're living in this tension of the both end and that shit ain't
Yeah.
easy. I know I just said a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, ooh, I I've been working for myself for close to 10 years. And my work started out in service to other it was mainly women entrepreneurs, right? Like I started out just doing VA work and I quickly shifted into like, oh, I don't like something that's going on here around me being in this VA position because what I noticed was as a helper, right? A virtual assistant, akin to like a secretary, admin assistant in the corporate world, are usually women of color,
Mhm.
who are then treated like the help.
Mm.
And so these help roles usually just get really looked over, like you can treat them like whatever. And in the virtual space, I was like, "Oh, that's how y'all want to treat me, and that's not gonna
Mm.
happen here." So so I, like, really took that and was took that learning, was like, "What do I wanna do here?" And that's how I pivoted into doing more strategy work. But there is this thing in business, and I do this work still with clients around work for themselves, mainly women, where if you have a desire to color outside of the lines of the status quo, if you have any inkling that shit is wrong, you immediately think like, "Oh, I'm a capitalist if I start making money." Right? So there's these extremes of like, I'm either gonna give it all away and not have nothing, and I'm gonna be like the martyr, that's gonna be me. Or it's this is what they or the teaching, or you're gonna be a rugged, I have to make all the money, nothing matters. Those are the
Facts.
2 paradigms that you exist in,
Facts.
and that is so not true, right? Because the water we're swimming in, and that's how I like to imagine it, is like we are swimming in this water of, like, relationships of exploitation,
Mm.
extraction, coercion, discipline, where it's impossible to have perfection or purity. You pull on one thing, it's pulling on another thing. The threads are tethered together. So the work is to understand, where are you located inside of that, right? Where have you been harmed? Where have you done harm? Where has your lineage been harmed? Where have you not had enough resource or too much resource? And what is the calling, right? So when you are working for yourself and you come from a line of people who have not been resourced, who have had their low labor exploited, who have historically been really harmed by the ideas and ideologies of these systems, the work then is not to be like, I'm taking nothing here.
Mm.
It's to understand what is enough for you because you never have been able to probably have enough.
Yeah.
So to understand, to really be with, like, what is enough inside of these systems that would allow me to be well? And
Mm.
then you do that work to start and you go from there. And you're like, okay, that number is a lot. I need $200,000. I've never had that kind of money. No one in my family has ever had that kind of money.
Yes.
That's too much money. Is it though? Depending on your location and your needs, right? So I'm a black single mother of 4 children.
Yes.
I need more money than someone who does not have the caretaking responsibilities that I have, right?
Yes.
So I always say if we get black and white around your actual money needs, it kind of can shift things for you. And that doesn't make you a capitalist because a capitalist is someone who owns the means of production. They own the things that control you. You working for yourself is not that. It is not that. But listen to what I'm saying. I'm not saying everyone should be a millionaire.
Yeah.
That is not the energy
Yeah.
because that is missing something too. That is
Mm.
saying like, why why do we all need to be a millionaire? If I go
Yes.
upstream from that, why do we all need to make that amount of money to live well? There's something wrong then. There is something wrong. So it for me is understanding what your needs are, being truthful around what your needs are, not shaming yourself, not blaming yourself, and not guilting yourself, but being with the truth of like, this is what this world requires at this moment for
Yes.
me to live. And depending on like who you have to take care of, and for us to live in a way that feels good, that
Yes.
this is the truth. And then sitting with that truth and being like, okay, what do I do with that? What
Yes.
can I do with that? What does that free up? Not a blanket, I need to be a millionaire because not all of us need to be millionaires. A millionaire is like gross, like $80,000 a month. Maybe everyone
Woo.
doesn't need that amount of money.
Mhm. Mm.
Maybe you need 10. Maybe you need 20.
Mm.
Maybe you need 30. But you need to know the numbers to then unstuck yourself from the like critique
Yeah.
of what you should have.
Yeah.
And so that's been my work with a lot of my clients is to say, you're not wrong for making the money you need to make. And the right thing here is asking the question of, right, why do I have to make this much money? That then is us talking about the water we're swimming in. We have to make that money because of capitalism, because of white supremacy. And then that opens us up to do deeper work.
Yes. Beautifully. Beautifully. Thank you for unfurling the intellectual pieces, a bit of the capitalism analysis. And you were one of the first people in my life that really broke it down for me that way and allowed me to really start chewing on this shame around like I need more money or like and I remember one of our first calls us talking and I think I got emotional. I got emotional a few times, but as I do, I mean, as I do in safe spaces or when spaces feel safe and allow me to
Yeah.
unfurl is what I mean. Um, Thinking about my parents and how they're in their 70s, they work two, three, multiple jobs. We grew up whatever the quote unquote classification of working poor or at poverty level is, always in debt, bankrupt a number of times. They'd never owned their own house until they moved to Texas and then had that opportunity. no shade if you're listening from Texas, but I had lots of concerns
Okay.
about right? And I'm like, for all these reasons. Um, and it, they in a 55 and over, they were able to purchase a house while my father was still working, because we know that there is then what happens if he's not working and there's no income. Can you even buy a house? Right? Like, there's all these ways this system works. So he's like, I have to move now. And it was like under 180,000, which up north, ooh, we baby. That's not even a studio apartment around, North Jersey or New York City, where we grew up and where they lived prior. So I'm bringing this up to say, I remember saying to Toy that I know, and I know my parents, we've talked about this all the time, and my father's comfortable with me sharing this, but that I was helping them then and I support now. And I remember my emotion was around, I need enough money, like to like so my parents don't have to pay that mortgage. Like, having this emotional reaction, like, and I realized like I was listing and I was like, and I felt guilt and shame around not that they needed it, but that I needed more air
Yeah.
quote, like quotation marks, right? Like I needed more, because what I was receiving and at that time with the university and how a lot of the world works, not always, bartering wasn't going to cut it
Yeah.
for the needs that I had, right? I needed financially what the university was giving me was not enough for what I was putting out and expending out. And I believe that that's why oftentimes, particularly Black women get sick, right? Because
Mhm.
there is no energetic reciprocity, right? Or financial reciprocity or relational reciprocity. And so for me, Toy, I remember sitting virtually, like, in front of you
Yeah.
and having this feeling of, I also need more money to take care of myself. Like literally, like because of the work I do and what I'm weaving, holding, crushing, and how when Black women become more visible, it's always motherfucking violent,
Mhm.
right? There's always violence attached. I need more care work on the back end. And some of that is care work that I have to pay for in order to be well and to be held. And that might include also things that feel pretty and good around me and that I don't need to feel guilty for that either. Doesn't mean I need to exploit it and buy, do A, B, C, and D, but also things that feel good and nurturing. And so um, I feel that you have continued to speak on this and teach this in a very beautiful way. And I think that's part of your work in business for the people as well, no? In a group setting, having these kind of conversations.
Yeah, I mean, the start of business for the people was really that, like, how do you do business inside of capitalism in an
Mm,
anti-capitalist way? What does that look like? And so in my one-on-one work, I bring that. And I wanna say, like, the reason it's so complex is because it is complex,
yeah,
right? Like, how
yeah,
there the answer to my problem's not the same answer I could give you to your problems or to another client's thing. It's all historical, it's all, like, deeply connected to how their life is structured, how their family is structured, how their bodies,
mm,
all the things. But I think one of my politics is like make all the money, but don't keep all the money.
yeah,
Because for some of us, we have the ability to bring more resource, more people, more eyes to us, right? So that allows us to capture more resources. And so I would never tell someone don't earn the money, right? Particularly a marginalized someone. I wouldn't say that. I would say, how much is your enough? Do you understand what that enough number is?
mm,
Okay?
mhm,
Perfect. You understand that? Once we get that satiated, once you're making that amount, all right, continue making money. Now, it's not a question of if you keep it, it's like, how are you then sharing it out?
yes, yes,
And don't stop talking. Don't stop doing your work. Keep being creative. We live in this system that's going to allow you to call more money in, but now then you can maybe question how you're pricing. What do your prices get to be? What does free look like in your work? Um, how are you gifting things? And like when you're bringing money in that is above your enough, where is it going? What is your
Mhm.
politic around that, right? So it opens up
Mm.
the ability to still be creative because a lot of the people I work with are deeply creative. And that creativity calls people in and again calls in more money, calls in more resource. And so the capitalist way is like, well, that's all yours. Just keep it and accumulate. Like one of the principles of capitalism is accumulation, is that you have a
Mm.
fat savings account that is for the future when people are suffering now.
Yes.
And it's like, how do we flip that even if we are people that have been marginalized and haven't had enough? But once you start getting enough, where is the room? And also, maybe you'll never get that enough because it's so big and it's so historical and it's so like no amount is going to feel good. Maybe no amount's going to feel good in your body. Then it's like, where is the space to live into your values? And how do we do that? Because also there's no perfection and it's going
Mm.
to look different for everyone.
Absolutely. Is this different? What you're talking about here, this is this different than mutual aid?
Hmm. Um, I don't know if it's different from mutual aid. I think it's really being in relationship though and in
Mm.
conscious consideration of what money does in your world and like where it flows and where it goes and having a practice around that, right? Because there's this thought around that have seen floating around for years is like just give people like that once I make all the money, then I'll start giving. Once I want to make the millions of dollars so that I can give. But for me, the question is, if you don't have a practice around already around divestment, redistribution, or like giving and being in relationship, like the fluidity of resource in that way, when you get all the money,
Yeah. Yeah.
are you suddenly going to develop this practice?
This practice and relationship. Absolutely. Yeah.
Probably not,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so the question is, and like, this is where in my brain all these like threads are weaving because it depends again on where your positionality is, right?
Mm.
So if you are a black woman who hasn't had enough money, there's different work for you there. That's going to take longer. We need to have different conversations. We need to feel into different things. If you are a white person, a white woman who has come from resource and you're maybe scared of visibility or you're scared of something else, like you have different work around your resource. It maybe needs to be not in getting it, but like giving it, right? So it's just these different there's not one blank statement that I
Absolutely.
can give
Yeah.
other than like make all the money, but don't keep all the money.
Yeah.
How do we have a politic around that? And then again, depending on where you are socially located, like
Yeah.
how do you fit there?
Yeah. Right. Because our social location can also shift
Yes.
and change. Right. And what I
Yes.
hear you saying is it's important to to be in constant relationship to and fluid relationship to our resources.
Yes.
If those are changing, our money, like that's not a bad word. It just
Mhm.
is, right? Like our money, if you are a business owner or in business or nonprofit, like our relationship to that machine or entity or entities, as well as and although we're not saying it explicitly, this is something that I have received so much beautiful education on from you, from our other beloved friend Danielle, from others. Um, Also, the humanity in which we treat, how do I say this? The humanity that, sorry, rewind. The lack of humanity or humanity in which we treat our staff, employees, VAs, loving holy helpers, however we want to call them,
Mm.
right? Tech people. I mean, you spoke about it briefly in talking about yourself and how you started out. And um, one of the things I aim to constantly and consistently do is to continue to pour in as best as I can to the folks that are supporting and on the mission with me and doing this work, right? And making sure that they're well, and that can increase at times, or and I'm in constant conversation with each of them, even if it takes me more time, even if it's extra meetings. Like, I just want to say, like, the shit ain't easy. Right?
No.
Being hella relational with it, like, yes, okay, I know, air quotes, quotation marks, in a normal business out there or at a university you used to work at, every 6 months or every year, you would get this kind of increase. And
Exactly.
however we're working in this ecosystem, can we talk about what that might look like? Can we
Yeah.
talk about your needs? Can we talk about what's reality for me? And I'm also talking to them about my needs.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm pretty transparent and relational with them around my needs, and I ask them to be relational with me because of, I'm being really transparent here. Part of the way that my divergence kind of operates in this world is I can underestimate how much time something takes.
Mhm.
I can underestimate how much of my energy needs to be put into something, how long it'll take, right? And so I might assign or ask for ba 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 ba. And so right off the bat, I'm constantly reminding my small but amazing and expansive team, like, please let me know if this timeline or what we're asking for isn't doable, or you need more support, or once you start it, if you're like, whoa, this beast just unfurled and and this ain't gonna happen in a month. Then I have to push up against this energy in me, like, but I really want it done now. I want it done last week. Like, I want us to do it ASAP, or we need this income, or, and then I get to, and sometimes we breathe together, me
Mm.
and folks working with me, and we're like, okay, we bring in our own practice of, like, what would the energy of DT say to this? Right? Like,
Yes.
maybe we could ask the spirit and the energy of DT, like, hey, you want us to really get this done by such and such? Then we're going to need more resources, or we're going to need more help, or we need 10 more folks to sign up for such and such so we can all get paid and this can get done. So, does that make sense? Like, this
Oh my
you
gosh.
help me think like this. And it's not perfect,
Mm.
but you're one of the people that helped this relational process in this business, because as my beloved womb shaman Rafaela Sadia would say, owning, and I hate that word, but or
Mhm.
facilitating, stewarding a business
Yeah.
is shadow work.
Mhm. Yeah. And I mean, I feel like I have so much to say about business. I have not been in my business bag in a while. So this is this is good. So, I think of, like, business is people.
Mm,
What the 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 overarching overculture narrative is, like, it tries to erase the humanity, the humanness, the relationality of what business is. You can have a business outside of capitalism, right? So there people conflate those of, like, "Oh, but you're in business for yourself, so you're a capitalist." That they're not the same. One is directly about profit and exploitation, and that is capitalism. One is about meeting the needs of the people, selling what you have, commerce, exchange, and it doesn't have to be strictly about profit. It's not tied to profit, right? But at the root of business is relationship. And so what I always try to bring back is to not dehumanize the people I'm in relationship with inside of these businesses. even the business itself. Because what does it, like you said, what is the energy of DT? What is the energy of loving Black single mothers? What needs to be present here? So it's, and I'm thinking about it in like this whole ecosystem. It is the energy of the actual business. It is the relationships of the people outside of it that we're in service to, the
Mm,
message that needs to be shared. And how do we take all of that and not collude with these systems? Because business is a really easy place to just say, it's not personal, it's business. And
that.
that is the saying,
Mm,
right? It's
mhm.
not personal, it's business. Well, that means that you can underpay people, you can steal people's work, you can devalue the time and labor it takes to get things done. You can be extractive and exploitative and then say, it's not really personal. It's just business. You can not have responsibility, be accountable to anything or anyone, have no values
Yes.
under this whole guise of business. So for me, it's flipping it and really understanding there are people here. And how do we treat it like these people matter, like the vision matters, and do it in a way where everyone, as much as we
Yes.
can feel and do good work. And as you said, that means things are slower. That means you're having more conversations than not. That means like you're considering more, right? Like, how much do you need? Well, I need this amount. Well, this is a resource we have. What do we do with this? What can we actually do? So it's a lot of like right sizing
Mm,
of like, we have this big vision, but we don't have the resource yet here. So what can we do inside of this that's not going to force us to take it off our bodies? Because that's what you're supposed to do in business is just like grind. And instead be like, well, this isn't present here. What can we do with what is? And so that those are like some of the questions I ask people to think about when they're in business, and it's not sexy because you're really just like in deep consideration, and that's the part that doesn't exist in these systems is the deep consideration, the like, hands on heart, like, oh my gosh, okay, this is hard. I want to do this thing. I want us all to be well. I want, and then it's like, but no, also, what am I challenging here? How can I not be, because I hate this saying, not be my own boss? Because I always say I'm not my own boss.
mm,
I'm my own beloved. I'm my
mm,
own lover.
mm,
I'm
mm.
my own creative partner and collaborator, but I'm not my own boss. That is supremacist power over language. And we take that stuff from being in like the corporate plantation, take that with us.
Come
And we're
on.
like and we're like, "That's what I am now. I'm my own boss." And I ask and I invite us to, like, really think about the language and the energy that we take with us when we do have the opportunity to bring in our own resources in the ways that we want, changing the language and the thought around it.
I'm just staring at you right now
You are.
in love.
Mm,
And I'm inviting our beautiful listeners to like receive um, and to really allow any tingling, any moments, jotting down. I hate when I'm listening to things and I'm like, wait, slow down. And I know you can rewind and I know you can like, go back 10 seconds or 15. But sometimes we also need just a second to, whew, because you are snatching edges, but also sewing in beautiful weave at the same time. If that's possible. Like it's like both and it's just like, oh yeah, and that's true. And that's how things resonate for me. And that's who I gravitate towards. It's not, I don't give a shit about, oh, this coach has a lot of likes, or this person does this, or this person referred them. How do they feel to my fucking nervous system, bro? Do I feel like I can
mm.
be myself around a person that I am going to work with, co-create with, that I'm going to unfurl and talk to and share with? Is there a sense of, okay, they understand or thinking about these systems and these politics and these relationships outside of this white supremacist, cis, hetero, fucking ableist box that
Mhm.
wants me to continue to work myself to the fucking bone and do things in this cookie cutter way that it's always been done. And anyone that says like, "Would you need to make 10K really fast?" or "I can help you da 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 every month." There's one thing saying, okay, how much do you need to be well on a
Yeah.
monthly basis to care for you, ICYC, this, that, send this amount of money to your parents, this,
Yeah.
go to this system to take care of your nervous system, see your therapist, right? Take your supplements, see the functional medicine doctor because this doctor's killing you, dot, 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 daycare, whatever things we all got going on. One thing is to ask, what do we need to be resourced and well, right? And in that might even be to give blank amount of money extra to folks that you
Yeah.
know are in need at this time. Like I've been budgeting for that. You know, and I have a loose fluid, but like my budget is not like budget. Like this is because I know my very clear everything, neurospicy brain, like static budgets can't work for me. But in my brain, I know that every month, this certain amount, right, goes to an individual that I'm aware of that is deeply in need. And usually they're in my community, right? Like someone who's barely making end meet, folks that are just like eating ramen because they don't
Yeah.
want like ramen noodles. Like I've been there, cups every day, and their blood pressure is high and it ain't working for them anymore. And it's
Mhm.
like, how can I deeply resource you? How can DT resource you? We're giving back to you.
Mhm.
And doing it within our communities, whether it's mine or the folks that work with DT, is a way that we feel good. Even
Mhm.
if it's one of our besties or one of our extended uncles that just came out of
Yeah.
upstate or penitentiary.
Yeah.
But every month I also give, and I'm trying to form relationship to the folks that are of the Lenape in New Jersey, right? Because that's my way of communicating, being in right relationship between the entity that is decolonizing therapy and the land that we reside on and out of. So um, I'm just sharing this, not to talk about myself, but to say that it certainly isn't always easy.
Mhm.
And everything that Toy is saying has crafted, these questions have crafted my ability to feel better and better about stewarding this business or this work and my visibility, and this
Mm.
language has allowed me to feel better about being in this world doing this.
Mhm.
So, um, I also you mentioned loving Black single mothers, and I'm like, whew, yo, what you have I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about loving Black single mothers, because maybe everyone doesn't know. And in my mind, I'm like, they do know. Everybody must know, right? So that's number one. And number two, whatever you'd like to share around some of the goals of loving Black single mothers, and even a little bit of how that came together for you. I mean, some of us might think like, oh yeah, we could understand why perhaps Toy Marie Smith, you know, stewarded and brought forth loving Black single mothers, but I wonder if there's like an origin story there or like a moment for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. I think there are moments. Loving Black single mothers is it's at the core like a deep love to myself. Is where it kind of started of being like, what did or does Toy need? Did I need as a single mother, and what wasn't showing up for me? How can I create that for other Black single mothers so that their experience could have some cushion, right? And that's kind of where it started, but it's been a dream in some shape, or form for probably 15 years. And
Mm,
I share that because we're in 2025 and the people have just caught up to the vision. Like,
mm,
I've tried over years to bring something like loving Black single mothers to the forefront, and the collective wasn't ready. And so I kept, like, in different ways, bringing different versions of it out into the world. And like, this thing would work. This seed would sprout. This thing would, people would be open to this thing. And it really has been only within the last 5 years, since 2020, when I think really some paradigm shift awakening has been happening, where people were like, oh, we can rock with that. And so loving Black single mothers is just that. It is loving Black single mothers. Not loving in the way in the overculture we talk about that it's just this like feeling.
mm,
It is love of bell hooks love. It is a
mm,
love of respect. It is a love of showing up. It is a love as in a verb. It
mm.
is love of like, we want your material conditions to be well. And so we are rooted in material conditions. And so most of our ecosystems, our ecosystems are our programs, are about moving money to Black single mothers, like giving them the resource to do what they need in
Yes.
their world.
Yes.
Because as someone who, as a Black single mother who does not get child support, has been on all the forms of welfare, food stamps, Medicaid, WIC, every form. What they want you to do is prove your poverty. You have to go in and be dehumanized and tell
Yes.
your story and constantly be checked up on around why you need this money. And so I took that and was like, we're not doing that here. So we say we trust Black single mothers. And so what that means is we're going to, our work is to get the money in your hands. What you do with it is what you do with it,
Yes.
right? Because we also know that Black single mothers are scrutinized for not making good choices with money. I'm not paying you child support because that money's not going to go to my child. It's going to go to you. Well, you're right. It is going to me because I'm the one taking care of the child. And so
Yes.
I've taken all of my experiences inside in custody court systems, child support, all of it, and being like, how do I shape something? How do we shape something that honors Black single mothers and their particular social location that is oftentimes ignored
Mm.
and scapegoated and used as a justification for violence and harm? How can we use all that and say, like, no, we are going to tend to you and tend to you well. We're going to give you things and say we trust you, and we're going to be in support of you. So that is the work that we do. And currently we have 3 ecosystems that we run. One is called Forever Flourishing, which is in its um, beta round. Our pilot round is right now. It's ending in June of this year. And so it's a cohort of moms who have received $30,000 in
Woo.
a grant, $2,500 a month to tend to their lives. And inside of that, they also get a $5,000 wellness stipend, right? To do the things that you're talking about. How do I go see an acupuncturist? How do I go see a functional medicine neuropathic doctor? How do I get money to go work out or go to a sound bath or do any of these things?
Yes.
So because that's always been important to me, and I had to find that money in the crevices or not have it at all,
Facts.
it was like, how do we just give them money earmarked for that? So they get that, and they also get, a coordinator, and coordinator is kind of like their guide during the time together. It's someone they talk to every month about their experiences. That's just kind of like a partner in possibility is what we say, to like hold the thread for them. So that's our big ecosystem. And then we have Holiday Love, which is about to wrap up its fourth cohort. And
Woo.
that's where for the holiday season, we give moms, they get $500 a month for 4 months to be in the holidays, to tend to their children, tend to themselves. And so we take away some of that shame, guilt, blame, anxiety that comes with the holidays, and if you're a single mom and you don't have support in that way. And then we also have Summertime Joy, which is a really an ode to giving mamas money to put their kids in summer camp, to maybe take their family to the amusement park, to
Yes.
maybe buy the block popsicles. Like, what do you wanna do in the summer to
Yeah.
make it memorable? How can we support that? So those are our core, programs, and we're really trying at the root to interrogate how donors show up in our organization and how donors show up collectively. What is a donor?
Yeah.
And what does redistribution mean versus just giving, right? And
Yes.
so, like, how do we talk about that? And then how how do we help moms politicize their motherhood and understand, deeply understand their location as a Black single mother and
Mm.
who should be held accountable for some of the ways that they are forced to live. And so I
Yes.
try to wrap all that up in loving Black single mothers, and, we are a small team. There are 2 of us full-time, but we have, like, 5 to 7 collaborators at any given time that are supporting us in the work.
This for me, A, thank you for doing this. You know, thank you for taking, I imagine, this seed, this idea that started, as you said, maybe years and years through your own experience,
Yeah.
as well as the experiences of the world around you. And thank you for loving on Black single mothers, right? Um, and thank you for continuing to water this
Mm.
and also bringing in various community members. I was just, it was, I was grateful to be in community with a bunch of other badasses in the ideation seedling
Yes.
place.
Yes.
Even that was, and when I say radical, I'm not saying it in this like current day overused definition, but radical like at the root,
Mm.
doing it fucking different and making it, as you're talking about with businesses, and being in business more relational,
Yeah.
right? Like, you had us come together and each, I would say each person sort of brought in their level of knowing with a capital
Mhm.
K. And we got to be in relationship to each other for a small period of time. And I really enjoyed that part too. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We, I was intentional in the beginning to call in beloveds who knew there was something I was seeding like this because it felt very like I've never just carried it on my own. But I needed people who knew me to help me do it and do it well. And so we had an advisory council that you were included in that started at the beginning when I was like, I'm gonna do this. Like, I'm gonna do that. And quickly I want to tell like how I even got to be able to steward loving Black single mothers is that I was doing the work of business for a really long time, like working with other people who were in business. And that was like paying my bills. But I kept getting tapped on the shoulder of like, you need to do something with loving Black single mothers. And it wasn't loving Black single mothers wasn't the name of the whole org at the time. That was just one ecosystem. That was just forever flourishing. It was just this one thing I was gonna do. And before I started, I was like, I can't, as an under-resourced Black single mother, I can't do it all. I still have to work. So I went to subscribers of my newsletter, people who had been rocking me for a really long time, and I said, I have this big idea. I want to do this thing, but I need money. I'm under-resourced. I need $6,500 a month for the next 6 months to bring this to life. And I put this email out there and I said, can you support me at $100 at whatever amount for the next 6 months? And within 72 hours, I had people say yes. That was me being able to take, like, all the time I've been talking about these things and really form relationships and say, "Can you support me?" And it wasn't just me, it's this idea.
Yes.
And so that's how I was able to see the beginnings and actually get here in 2025 as like we are full-fledged organization, is that I had to ask for help. And
Mm.
again, that part as a Black woman
Mm.
to say like, "I don't have enough, I need support," that was a muscle I've been working on for years to say, "I don't got it, but I have an idea, I have a vision, and I'm worth it. Where I know I'm worth it. And if you've been rocking with me long enough, you know I'm worth it. So then how do we collective so from the beginning, Loving Black Single Mothers has been collectively stewarded. It is not just me working on this at all. So you are part of the advisory council. I called in Beloveds to hold it with me, and we did some good work really interrogating how do we do this not in a status quo way that is like power over, like these are needy people, but like this is a population. This is a community of folks that are we need to uphold their humanity. We need to really love on them. In every question from what does our applications look like? What does our enrollment process look like? How do we offboard people from this? We were in deep interrogation. And so that's why my our things are so small, like, we don't allow for, the need is bigger than we can ever support, and we don't
Mm.
even I'm not even trying to meet that big need because that's not our work.
Mhm. Mhm.
And for me, that is like that's egocentric to be like, "I need to fix all of that." That's not
Yeah.
we're here to do our piece and
Yes.
plant some seeds, and then maybe you see there's another piece you could pick up, and you could do it in support of this. But we keep it really small because we're deeply intentional and interrogating everything, and that started from that advisory council.
This is paradigm shifting and
Mm,
crushing and building, right? This
yeah.
is, for me, this is the literal root, not to be cheesy. Like when I say from root to bone, this is what we're talking about is like, what seeds are we growing and tending to, which ones don't make it, which ones need a beautiful, honorable death, right?
Yes.
Which seeds, projects, and ideas are we constantly watering and asking other people to help us water? Which
Yeah.
ones do we need to walk away from? Right? I've been thinking about that with DT. Like, yeah, how long will I steward this? Like maybe our newer,
Yeah.
younger, not younger, I take that back. A fresher, different perspective energy is ready to kind of move this ship in. And what would that look like? So as you're talking, Toy, what I'm thinking about is again that ancestral technology, that
Mm,
ancestral intelligence, that AI that my friend Jen Maramba talks about, that I'm clear that there's something in your people and your lineage and your history.
mhm.
I'm taking a little spiritual, energetic guess here.
Yes.
There's that your people also found maps and ways and
Mm,
routes out of things and brought people together through through routes that weren't always well walked.
mm,
I
mhm,
believe that you create paths and you remind us that we can co-create paths along with you.
mhm,
Yeah. So thank you. I keep
mhm.
thanking you because I want to.
Thank you. No,
Yeah.
thank you.
How can folks pour into Forever
Mm,
Flourishing, Loving Black Single Mothers, or anything else? Like, where would you? I'm sure everybody has a different role, and not everyone listening has the monetary piece, but some people do.
mhm.
Not
Yes.
everybody has the bandwidth to get all in, but some people could do this or that. Or, we're all hands on deck, I like to say, and we're
Yeah.
all needed. But how can they help? And where would you like to lead folks?
Yeah, so that's always a question of mine of like being very strategic and understanding that these systems are uneven, asymmetrical. Like, so everyone doesn't have access to all the things and we all have different needs. So in my work, like if you have the financial means, we are always looking for donations at Loving Black Single Mothers, and you can go to lovingblacksinglemothers.com, because we are a grassroots countercultural subversive organization who are really calling in people to look at Black single motherhood. We don't take any corporate dollars, we don't take any foundation dollars because we wanna move how we move. So we are, uh, people funded, and all of our money comes from, like, people saying, "Yes, I'm gonna give on a recurring basis," and that's from $5 all the way up to $1,000 per month. So yes, if you wanna rock with us in that way, you can. If you are like, "I wanna learn more," like, I'm always doing study groups, always, and one of my free offerings is the deepening, which is 52 weeks of, um, reading sent to your email, and so every week for a year, you get a different essay, article connected to uprooting, decolonizing, and it's free. And so you do that for a year in practice, you're gonna learn some things, you're gonna question some things, you're gonna come out a different person, and so that's free. I curated it myself. It took some fucking time. I'm very proud of it. So,
Say that.
you can get it for free. I offer it to the collective for free. Um, and yeah, if you are a person in business and like thinking about business, I do that work with folks, around strategy, um, very, selective in who I say yes to in that way because energy, because values, because bodies and being. So, um, you know, if that's you, encourage you to go on my website and read that, toymarie.com. But lovingblacksinglemothers.com, toymarie.com, and Instagram are probably the spaces and places you wanna find me and sign up to my newsletter because I do send out a couple times a month pretty great newsletters. So
Really fucking
those are
great.
all the places you can find me.
Thank you for all of that. And that will also be in the show notes, folks. You'll be able to find all of that information. Um, as always, Toy, you and I can go on and on, whether whether we're in Brooklyn or somewhere in
Yes.
Colorado. I know we can, and I want to honor your time capacity, mine,
Yeah.
as well as our beautiful producer, Triple. I do have one last question.
Yes.
Um, I'm wondering, I'm just gonna pick a number here. Hold on.
Mhm.
I'm wondering what you think 9-year-old Toy Marie might have to say about you and your grown ass now and what you do, how you mother, how you love, how you dismantle and resurrect.
Mm. I mean, I think 9-year-old Toy would be so impressed. So impressed. There's a lot of ways that I am still deeply 9-year-old Toy, right? So I think about, um, how much of a lover I was then and how
Mm.
soft I was then and how there weren't a lot of ways that I could be in that because of all the things that were happening in my home life. Um, and I think she would be very proud that I'm worked towards being able to be softer and more loving and let that be what I lead with. And that I was such a deep reader then. I lost myself in books. That was my favorite. And that is who I am now to the bone. And so I think she would be like honored and super like encouraged and just happy that I found a way to not allow some of my choices and the circumstances of life to like slow me down or get me to a place where I just was in despair. So I've pulled myself up in a lot of ways, and I think she would be hella impressed.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your time on this Sunday. I don't know about y'all out there, but it's pretty chilly over here. It's like 20, 30 something degrees.
No, it's
Uh,
warm here in Denver. We got like
Really?
we're gonna be 60s this week, which is wild. So yes, it's a little warm.
Hey. Thank you, Toi. Thank you, thank you, thank you for everything you bring. Thank you for who you are. Even if you didn't give, create, produce
Mm,
anything ever again in your entire life, thank you for being. Yeah, you're really
mm,
special, and I'm just grateful for you. And I love you deeply. Thank you.
mm,
And for folks that are listening, we invite you, please, to care for yourself. Believe it or not, what you're hearing, it's a transmission. The conversations, the people that are lovingly, energetically curated to come on for this first season, all of it is in the interest of the collective and interest of transforming and
mm.
unraveling some of the internal, energetic, emotional, physical, financial knots that capitalism and white bodied supremacy has laid on us. So, on purpose, it is truly about remembering and finding our rooted selves and remembering that we are really, truly never alone. And when we can ask for help, and put out bids of care and and offer bids of care, we are truly fucking winning and pushing back against fascism and the patriarchy and everything else every single motherfucking time. So with
Yes.
that, I want to say, may we remember that we will never again be in this place, at this space, at this time, with these people, in this energy, in this body. So thank you for being. Please find ways to care for yourself and care for others around you. And thank you for listening and watching From Root to Bone with Dr. Jenn and our wonderful guest, Toi Smith. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
From Root to Bone is a podcast from Decolonizing Therapy. It is hosted by me, Dr. Jenn Mullen. Our producer is Tribble at Ash Tribble Incorporated. Original music by Laura Burke and cover art by Madre Shell. Don't forget to find us on Instagram at Decolonizing Therapy and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Decolonizing Therapy, for the full video version of each episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your people and leave us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to podcasts. That helps people find us. For more info about Decolonizing Therapy, visit our website, www.decolonizingtherapy.com. Be well.